Hey everybody, when I first started with metalworking, I was told that a plasma cutter was everything when it comes to metalworking, so I just started with a grinder instead. But now, I've got the BestArc plasma cutter. So BestArc reached out to me and sent me the BTC500DP Generation 3. It has all of the same features that you're gonna have on the other machines, and it comes with the plasma cutter, the cutting torch, the earth clamp, 2 tips, 2 electrodes, and 1 air hose. Having a plasma cutter sounds pretty awesome. I've never used a plasma cutter though before. I've seen it done, but I've never done it myself. This could get really interesting really fast. So let's take a look in this box and see what we got inside. Couple other things it says on the box. It is a dual voltage 110 and 220. I'm gonna have a 220 outlet installed here shortly, and then we can test out the difference between the 110 and the 220. And for sure I'm gonna be testing it on the 110 just because average homeowner, what is it that we can do with these things? It's rated from 10 to 50 amps, can go allegedly up to 12 millimeters. I'm gonna see if I can get it to cut some really thick stuff that way. Has a duty cycle of 60%, and the suggested air pressure at 110 is 20 to 40 PSI, and at 220, it's gonna be 30 to 60 PSI. So let's see what's inside. Let's see, we got a box. Ooh, that's a little bit of a heavy box. Yay, foam. More foam. Oh, a pretty green machine. Anything else? Nope. Let's get this thing unpackaged and see what we got. One of the first things I'm noticing is that it's got a 3-prong, nice heavy-duty cable. That's very nice. Take a look at the back here first. Get rid of that. Pretty simple on-off switch here. There is already an air input with the water separator. That's pretty nice. And in the front, we've got the air cut with the little arrow button there, the 2T, 4T, PT. We'll go over what that is. Nice little knob that spins continuously. That should be fun to figure out. And a air regulator right here. Interesting. Then we've got the pilot arc right there with a washer, the ground lead right there, and this under here, nice little rubber cap, is going to be where the gun plugs into. Let's see what's in the box. In this box we have some sort of a hose, find out what that's for, some Teflon tape and some little worm gear tighteners, looks like some tips, the lovely 3-prong 220 adapter to 110, nice and thick. The ground lead, we'll measure that and see just how good that is. Looks like it's the standard ground clip there. Some silica gel, ooh. Some instructions, and the cutting torch itself. Let's take a look at that. Very nice. It's got a nice little safety trigger on it so you can't accidentally torch your little hot dog fingers. And the leads. Oh, and a fancy little Chinese multi-wrench. Always wanted one of these. So let's measure some of these things out and see just how long these things are. Take a look at our instructions. And of course, we gotta see just how good their English is, because that's always fun. Grab tape measure and snippers. Give this a clip. So the ground lead is going to be a little over 9 feet long. And the cutting torch itself is going to be a little over 12 feet long. Get it out to the tip. Oh yeah, you could probably stretch that thing to 13 feet from the machine. Now this hose that comes with it, I'm just not sure how much I would trust it. This looks more like a water hose than anything. They've got the little clamps to put on it, but I mean, if you've got it like an actual setup where you can plug in your air compressor line straight into here, I would definitely do that rather than hooking this up to an air compressor, because this just very flimsy, very questionable. So hopefully you've got a better air line than this. Almost forgot the power cord. Let's get this measured. Looks like we are at 62, 63 inches for the power cord. So just over 5 feet. Let's go ahead and plug this thing into 110, see what kind of damage we can do. And first things first, we're gonna go ahead and get this whole thing plugged in. Let's start with the ground cable, because that's pretty simple and basic if you ever used one of these before in a welder. Stick it in, twist it, and should be good. Next we're gonna have, oops, let's pull that thing back off. Next we have the torch connections, and down here at the bottom looks like it just twists in. Pretty simple. We got a red wire and a little pluggy thing. It's got a little V-notch at the top Oh, nope, at the bottom. So slide that in there. And then we got the red wire. Never cut the red wire. And that's probably gonna go right here. We got a little washer, so let's, what do you think? Washer inside, outside? We're just gonna put it on the outside and put the little screw in, nice and tight. And when it comes to adjusting the air pressure, you're gonna have to pull this thing out to adjust it back and forth, and then be able to pop that right back in. And don't mind the messy workshop area, garage area. Let's just set that right on our fancy table and plug this into the wall. And it'll be really nice once I do get that 220 on the other side there. And for our first test subject, let's try some thin little, what is this, 14 gauge, I think? Yeah, it's probably 14 gauge, it's pretty thin. Nice little test subject, just start out. And let's not forget the ever important air hose line. Let's see how well this plugs into here. Can you see it okay? Hopefully. Just take this and stick it in there. Wonder what that's rated at. Let's take a look at the other regulator. See what it's even putting out. It's looking like it's set at 90-ish pounds per square inch. And here on this machine, that's looking like from the factory, they had it at about 60. Pull this thing out. Maybe take that down just a little bit, pull the trigger. Ah, bet you have to turn it on first. Go ahead and turn it on. And what happens? We got some flashy lights. It's set to cut. And it's gonna cycle the air just to clean out the hose. Looking like it drops down about 10 PSI when I do that. It's good to know. So this button here is gonna be your air or cut selector. The 2T and 4T, that's how many presses of the trigger do you want for it to be turning on and off. So here on your trigger, if you want to have it on 2T, it'll just on and off. And by selecting it on 4T, that's gonna be 4 touches. That means your first touch is gonna turn it on and the second one's gonna turn it off. So we click, and there goes turn it off. So the PT button, that's gonna be your post time, prime time, part time, post time, that's what it is. So when you want to change this, post time, so this is how many seconds, 15 seconds down to 3 seconds are your options. So how long do you want that air to come out of the tip after you get done cutting? Because this tip is gonna get stupid hot. I think it's at about 5,000 degrees is what the internet's been telling me. So this tip right there, the extra air at the very end is going to allow it to cool off that tip a little bit, blow any debris that's in it out of it, and that is what helps save your consumables. And there will be a link in the description to the consumables, which are, they seem pretty cheap, honestly. But yeah, let's have a little bit of fun and play with this thing. Fire! Hopefully the fan that's going in the background isn't too loud that you can't hear me talking. And I'm gonna apologize if the air compressor kicks on also. I'm just gonna draw a nice little line here, about 1 inch from the edge. And I'm gonna practice on this 14 gauge to see how well it goes. And I've been told from the internet that you wanna place it on the piece as close to the work as you can. And of course, make sure you're not, you know, draping your cord over and then cutting through your line, because that would be disastrous. And make sure there's nothing flammable around, like buckets of gasoline or aerosol cans or anything. So let's just go ahead and see how this does. Guess I just put it here, pull the trigger, and away we'll go. Yeah, not too bad for a first cut, I guess. Left a little bit of extra material at the other side. I don't know how to cut a straight line. I never learned, not even in kindergarten. So let's try this again. That was kind of fun. A little bit better. Let's see what happens if we just move it a little bit faster. There's less deposit on the backside there, that's for sure. That's apparently a little bit too fast. Didn't quite cut all the way through that. So let's slow it down just a bit. That cuts very quickly. Okay, now I've got this chunk of angle. I think this is about the thickest thing that I have here. Millimeters, we're gonna go with about 6.3 millimeters. Switch that over to inches. Should be about a 1/4 inch, I think. 2.245. So yeah, about a 1/4 inch thick. Let's see what kind of damage I can do to this real fast. Try and get this thing jinged up just a little bit. Port that as straight as possible. I think the last thing I want is to be shooting sparks down towards my feet or my legs. I'm gonna crank this thing up on high just to see what it'll do. And we're gonna put the pressure up, crank it up to, I'm gonna put the regulator on 70, which will drop it down to about 60 then, and see what we have then. Let's see what this looks like. I think I lost power. Well, I didn't lose all my power. Let's see what tripped. Yep, looks like there we go, now we got lights back. Looks like that's, well, like I said, I can't cut a straight line to save my life probably, and there's the proof. But if you can see there, it looks like that was cut pretty well through. Not too bad. We got about that far before the breaker tripped. So, yeah, guess we can't crank it all the way up. So let's take this down to, say, 30 amps. Leave it on the same pressure, right about 70, and see what that'll do. Just out of curiosity, I'm gonna see if I can do any straighter of a line by going sideways rather than trying to squiggly it and pull it towards me. I think it's just gonna take some practice to figure out how to use this thing. Whoa. Well, damn, that's dangerous. All right, we're gonna keep going with the pull method then. Pulling seems to be the safer of the two options. And it's kind of how I thought the air compressor kicked on, which honestly, that little Fortress air compressor, that's a pretty quiet one for what it's doing. And it looks like it got all the way through on that second pass. Again, I can't cut a straight line to save my life. We'll get better at that, I'm sure. But let me see what the thickest piece of non-angle is that I can get away with cutting here. So here's one of the thicker pieces that I've used. I'll find a clean spot where I can measure this. We're looking like 0.18, 0.1795. Yeah, that's 0.18. All right, let's cut this real quick. See what it looks like when I just cut a sliver off of that. See if we can trip the power again. Cutting a sliver off, cutting a sliver off. All right, here we go. Now, looks like I might have gone a little bit too fast right there at the end. Let's see if we can get that cut through. All right, pulling definitely better than pushing. Wow, that thing shoots sparks everywhere. Probably want to wear some sort of sleeve protection there. Ooh. Let me grab some gloves. May not have been enough air pressure going through that. I'm not sure. I mean, there's plenty of heat going to it, but there's a spot right there that just didn't get cut all the way through. Wow, that is hot. So let me see what the max air pressure is on this thing that I can do and try and cut another little sliver off this, see if we can get it to cut all the way through. Looks like the instructions say 60 to 70. So if you wanted to cut at 70, you gotta put it to about 80. So that's where we're gonna put it. And keep my gloves on because that just seems like a safe bet. This safety switch is nice, but it also kind of gets in the way. But I'd leave that on there. I'm not gonna take that off. All right, let's see what we can do here. Oh, there went the power again. Let's take a look at that though. Oh yeah, that is much better. Much, much better. So you can see where it didn't re-weld itself there. Definitely a much better cut right there than the first time. So I just had to crank up the airflow a little bit. Now, wow, that plate is super hot. Let me see what I can do to turn this thing back on and just cut that right off right there, just so I can see what that cut looks like. Let's see if everything still works. Wow. Yep. All right, so there you go. That's a pretty nice, clean looking cut. I quite rather like that. Wouldn't take but a little bit of a flap disc, clean that up a little bit right there. Call that good. And you can see where kind of cut in right there. Yeah, that should work. I'm gonna love this thing. That is awesome. That is so much easier, way quicker than trying to grab a grinder. I can't even imagine if I had an angle grinder just how long I'd be trying to get 4.5 inches cut. Take a little flap disc, clean that up, be all good to go. Okay, well, so far I will say on 110, I'm pretty impressed with it. For some light cutting work, this would do great on 110 in anybody's garage. That is so cool. I wonder how long it would take me to braise a steak with this thing. What if you cook hot dogs with it? Let's not try it on fingers. Hey, if you found this video to be even just a little bit helpful or kind of entertaining or mildly disturbing, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and like the video if you do. Smash it twice if you don't. Well, a little bit of a bummer. I got the 220 hooked up and made a couple little test cuts here just to see how it was different from the 110 side, which it's a little bit thicker. I mean, that's about the only difference that I can really see off the top of my head. Let me get this all set up again, and I'll be using this nice little square to make those nice straight lines. But I'm gonna cut this thing down, and quite an impressive difference. The 220 on the left and the 110 on the right, just how deep that thing goes. Now I've got the machine set on 40 amps, pushing about 80 pounds of pressure there, which means it'll output about 70. So let's go ahead and finish one of these cuts going across and see how it looks. Let's not forget to use our trusty square here. Get it all lined up. Wow, that is really hot. You can see on the left side the cut from a few days ago that I did, how it looked there with the 220, and pretty much the same right here. That is quite a nice sizable thick piece of metal though. And you can see where it had no problems at all going down. We'll call that almost 3/4 of an inch. That's a pretty deep cut. So this next cut that I'm gonna do right here with this little sliver and keep it going on around, I'm gonna switch this back over to 110 just so you can see the difference between the 220 on one side and the 110 on the other. Since we're switching this over to the 110, 35 is the highest that it'll go. I already know that that's gonna trip some breakers. So I'm gonna take this down to 25, and I believe by the specs in the manual, it should be good enough on, well, I mean, it really wants 30 amps. We're gonna try it on 25 though, just to see what we can do. So this might be a little weaker than what this metal needs for power. Yeah, it's just not quite wanting to go all the way through. Oh, and it looks like I popped the breaker at the same time. Let's see if we can get these wedged apart here. It is just that close. Ooh, that's hot. Get some pliers. Okay, and as you can see from last week's cut right here on the 220 and this one here on the 110, there's definitely a lot more. You can see the feathering of the air coming down more at an angle, where this is a lot more straight down. I mean, part of that is the power that's being pushed through it. The 110 just can't quite keep up with this thick of a metal. So if you don't have 220 in your shop, I'm thinking about 1/4 inch is probably about as much as you want to do. I'm not sure you want to go more than 1/4 inch. But if you've got 110 in your shop, at least you can know you can do 1/4 inch, no problem. But I'm definitely going to suggest bumping it up to the 220. 220 just, that looks so much nicer. Overall, I can say that I am quite impressed with this machine, especially on the 220. This is definitely one of the thicker things I'd ever be cutting on. And you can see that nice, sharp 90-degree angle going around there. That is a really nice cutting machine. I would highly suggest getting a 220 outlet though. Make sure you check out the links in the bottoms for the consumables, because you can see just with this little bit of testing that I've been doing, just playing around, cutting some stuff, the consumables have already started to clog up just a bit. I'll see what I can do to get that there. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. Just starting to get clogged up a bit. All right, now as an added bonus, I got some different things here that are pretty thick. So this first thing I'm gonna start cutting through, zero this out. Looks like we're sitting at about 12.7 millimeters, which I believe that should be 1/2 inch. Yep, got some 1/2 inch round bar here. And for the Mega Can It Do It, solid mild steel, 1 inch thick, and that is 25.575861. Yeah, 25 millimeters thick. Let's see if it can get through this, or what it looks like when it tries to. Looks like it took care of that, no problems at all. Interesting little pattern there. And now 1 inch thick. We're just gonna crank this thing up to 50, put it on 11. Crank it up to 11, that's what it's called, right? 50 amps, 70 PSI. Let's just see what happens. Try and get this to be a straight cut too. All right, hopefully you can hear me over the air compressor, but that is pretty amazing. That sucker is red hot. It was kind of cool to watch that thing turn red on the back side as I was cutting through, but wow, that is impressive. 1 inch thick bar. As you're working with your plasma cutter here, you're going to burn through tips, maybe even break some things and need some replacements. They are, as I said earlier, very inexpensive. I ordered 2 different sets, one from BestArc brand and one that's a no-name brand. A quick comparison between the 2 of them, you get 40 pieces for $40 from BestArc, and you get 50 pieces for about $23 or $4 from the no-name brand. They have what appears to be identical tips and electrodes. The difference is going to be with the cups. The BestArc brand is going to hold your tip really close to your work material, and the no-name brand has a little bit more of a standoff. Maybe that's a big deal to you, maybe it's not. You may also be able to reuse these guides here, pop these off and switch them over to the other one. And again, another major difference between these guides, the BestArc ones are very nice and smooth and shiny, and they slide across the work really nice. The no-name brand has this dull powdery metal on it, and it just didn't want to slide as nicely across the work, and then it also left a little bit more of a splatter and a spray. And I'm not sure if that has anything to do with possibly some sort of differences in these tips, but I can tell you that the BestArc brand was probably meant for the machine, and it may have a smaller or bigger hole, or just a cleaner drilled hole. I'll probably end up keeping both these sets, and this will last me more than likely a few years. But the one thing I did like is that the El Cheapo brand did have some nice little cases that came with it, so it'll be easier for me to lose all of them all at once. Something else that's a really cool perk or bonus of this type of a plasma machine, it's a little BB maker. So when you get done cutting a bunch of stuff, rather than a bunch of metal shards laying around on the floor, you get all these cool little BBs. I thought that was kind of cool. And I have no idea what you can do with these little bits of, well, it's kind of like steel shot, but knowing some of the ingenuity of some individuals, you can find some interesting uses for something like this. And it's a lot safer than finding those little metal shards that the cutoff wheels will leave all over your shop.